Hey, I'm Stephanie, and it's time to go through my bronzers, blushes, and highlighters. Today I will go through my entire powder cheek collection to see if I can slim it down. I needed to take a break from the mind-numbing decision fatigue that is decluttering single eyeshadows. I will link those videos in case you'd like to see them and you enjoy long deliberation sessions, but today I felt more like I needed a stroll in the park, and this category felt right for that. Because I don't really feel all that overwhelmed by my powder cheek cosmetics. I admittedly do still have more makeup than any one face will ever need, but I do feel like I can remember what I have and I actively think, oh, that's when I want to use this cosmetic. And I think that's a good sign because it means that I'm able to rotate through everything. It's giving me a sense of variety without overwhelming me. So I have a feeling this isn't going to be a really cutthroat declutter, but it is going to be fun. So let's switch to the overhead camera and get swatching. This is my powder cheek collection. I'm not going to be counting face palettes today because I store them differently, think of them differently, use them differently. So we're just going to be doing the individual products today, with the exception of this one here in the middle, which I use not only as a divider for this box, but also as a contour palette. So these here are the blushes, these here are the highlighters, and these are the bronzers. Let's start with this palette of singles. These are things that I have depotted. This was a Lancome sampler blush that I got decluttered to me. This is the Kevyn Aucoin Candlelight Powder Highlighter, and this is the Kevyn Aucoin Contour Powder in medium. And as you can see, I definitely use this contour powder, so that is staying. But I'm wondering if I can put that in my everyday eyeshadow palette, so I'm gonna go get that. This is a palette of singles that hangs out in my everyday makeup drawer, and I'm wondering if that contour will fit in there. Because this can also, of course, be used as an eyeshadow, so let's see. Will it fit? Perfect. Okay, so let's look at the other two things in here. We've got a highlighter. This highlighter is beautiful. It's gorgeous. It's soft. It's the lit from within kind of glow. It's not very shiny or too obvious. It's just nice. But it reminds me a lot of this highlighter from Becca in Moonstone. So let's swatch the two of them and see if it's worth keeping both of them. So here we have the Kevyn Aucoin, and here we have the Becca. And I feel like the Kevyn Aucoin is beautiful and very soft, but the Becca gives me a little bit more. And my question is, because I have another really soft highlighter in here. This is the Laura Geller Baked Highlighter in French Vanilla. Let's see what this one looks like. Okay, and I feel like this is the softest out of all of them, and the Kevyn Aucoin is kind of in the middle. So I feel like what I could do is if I really wanted this kind of soft look, I could probably mix the two of these. So I think what I'm going to do, since I happen to be decluttering individual eyeshadows anyway, it's the perfect time for me to declutter this as well, because I can put this in the palette, and then when my friends look through those palettes to see what they would like, then maybe one of them would like to take this, because this is gorgeous. I'm just trying to streamline things a little bit more. So this will go in one of those palettes. And the only thing left to talk about now is this blush. I think it's Miel Glacé from Lancome, but I'm not sure. All I know is that this color is absolutely gorgeous. This is like such a nice nude color because it's not too light, but it's just kind of, I don't know, it's my Goldilocks nude. The one problem I have with this is, I don't know if you can see it in this particular swatch, is that sometimes there are little individual glitter particles in there. And I'm not a fan of that. Now, I have some, like a highlighter, for example, that has little glitter particles in it, but the glitter particles are balanced throughout the formula. This one, I feel like they're kind of sporadic and they're kind of chunky. Perhaps you can see it here, because I had another Lancome blush decluttered to me that I really like. And this one also has sparklies in it. This one is the shade Plum Charm. And this one has sparklies in it as well. But I feel like they're much smaller and evenly spaced, and it's just kind of a more graceful formulation, whereas this, if it is miel glacé, is a little bit chunky. And so I think I'm also going to declutter this when I declutter my eyeshadows. So wow, we've already cleaned out a whole palette. We're off to a good start. Considering the fact that I've already pulled 2 of the highlighters out and I don't have that many of them, why don't we actually start with these? Let's see. We'll go from least dramatic to most dramatic. So we'll start with the Laura Geller once again. This is just such a soft highlight. And once again, the shade is French Vanilla. It's just so soft. It's just, it's so beautiful. I really like this. I definitely don't want to get rid of that. Then next, I think we'll go with maybe this one from Laura Mercier. This one is also a baked highlighter, but this one has sparkle to it. It's got a soft glow with sparkle, but just like this blush that I was talking about, where the glitter particles are small and evenly spaced, I feel like these particles are also very small and evenly spaced, and it just ends up giving such a soft glow. So here we have the Laura Geller, and here we have Laura Mercier. And both of them are just so soft and pretty. Then we have Becca Moonstone. I think Smashbox, this is one of the colors that Smashbox took on when they bought Becca. So let's see, where does this one go here? That one is also beautiful and definitely worth keeping. I've even hit pan on this, which is really hard to do in a highlighter, so I feel like it's worth keeping going. Then we have Pink Glow. This one is my only pink highlighter, and so for that purpose, I think it's actually worth keeping. The one thing about this is it is a very sparkly formula. I don't normally like a lot of sparkle and glitter on my face. I like it on my eyes, but I'm not crazy about it on my cheeks. However, because this is a highlight that I can place very strategically, I think I'm going to keep this for now because it is my only pink highlighter. But maybe you'll be able to see what I'm talking about texture-wise with this one. It's just got a little bit more sparkle to it than the others. And it's a beautiful sparkle. And it's a nice warm pink that really suits my skin tone, but I don't know, I use it less often because of the sparkle, but when I'm looking for a pink highlighter, this is the only one I have, and so I reach for it, and I do like it when I wear it. So for now, it's worth keeping. And this one is by Dior. It's the Dior Skin Nude Air Luminizer in the shade 001. And this one is actually kind of dark on me. But I had said during the winter when I was trying this out and comparing it to another one that I decluttered, I think it was Becca's Champagne Pop. They're very similar colors, and I decided that this one suited my skin tone just a little bit better. So I decided to keep this one. And what I want to do is I want to try it out this summer when my skin is deeper, because I think actually with a tan, this is going to look really nice because the finish is really nice, but it's just a little bit too warm and too dark on me right now to be a highlighter. It does work as a blush topper though, and it is pretty. The finish is pretty. Since I only have 5, let's move these over so we can see them all. I feel like that's not an overwhelming amount of highlight. Especially since each one of them is a little bit different. This one is possibly for summer. If I use it this summer and I realize that it's just still not quite right for me, then I will declutter it at the end of the summer. I've got a nice mix here, and every single one of them is different. Nothing is duping itself. So I'm actually pretty happy with this. This is my bronzer collection. It's also very easy for me to remember everything that I have and when I want to use it, because there is just a handful of them. The one thing is this bronzer here, the Guerlain Terracotta bronzer. I didn't choose this. This was like a free gift with something, I think, at some point. And so it's not the right color for me. It's shade 3. It's very orange. And I love the formula. That's why I've kept it all this time, because it's super lightweight. It melts into the skin. It's a veil of color with just the most beautiful subtle sheen. And so I really, really, really like this formula, but I just don't know if I'm going to keep it because the color is kind of wrong. And I don't want to hold this anymore. So what I'm going to do is put a little towel over it, because I think the camera won't focus if the mirror is in the way. So let's see if this will work. Okay, there we go. Sorry. This is recent makeup, not a stain. I do wash my things. Okay, so here we have the Guerlain Terracotta. And I think you'll see what I mean when I swatch it. It's just very orange and very dark. I can make it work, and I have made it work. But it's just kind of a lot. It's very orangey on me. And I'm wondering if that's going to make me declutter that today. Oh my gosh, that would be shocking. It's so difficult when a formula is this beautiful to declutter it, even when the color is wrong. I think I'd actually like to swatch this one next to the Marc Jacobs. So maybe I'll pull a switcheroo here like this, because I feel like these have something in common. They're very different. The Marc Jacobs is much lighter, much more fitting for my skin tone, but I think maybe it's the formula that reminds me because it's also very light, very finely milled, very soft, weightless on the skin. It just kind of, I don't know, it melts in and then it's gone, just leaves that veil of color. The only difference is that this is matte and that this is shimmery, and also, of course, that this color just suits me better and this is very orange. Next, I'm just switching everything around today. Let's do the Bobbi Brown. This is the bronzing powder in Stone Street. And this is also an absolutely lovely formula. Really, I mean, absolutely gorgeous. Very thin, very finely milled. And this one is like a rosier version. I feel like it has something similar to this, but it's like rosier and pinkier. And so it just kind of fits my skin better, even though it can also be built up to be pretty dark. It can be sheared out so nicely, although this one can too, I must admit. That's why I can make this one work, because I can shear this one out so nicely. But this one, it's just a tone that's a little bit more native to my own skin, so it's a little bit easier to wear. Then we have Benefit Hoola. This is my last matte bronzer, and this one is just pretty darn neutral. And that also makes it very easy to wear. So I'll build that up a little bit just so we can see the color differences really clearly. Also, an extremely easy color to wear. And last but not least, we have my Tom Ford Glow Bronzer in the shade Terra. This is so pretty. I got this last summer. A friend and I did a trade because we both had bronzers that didn't really suit us. And so she gave me this one. I gave her mine, and it turns out this worked for me. So I am really happy with the trade. I hope she is just as happy. So this is the Tom Ford. This is the coolest one that I have, and it's the only other glowy one. So I've got the terracotta as glowy and the Tom Ford as glowy. And they're like opposite ends of the spectrum color-wise. This one is warm and orange. This one is cool toned and pinky, but I can make it work. Even though I do lean golden, I'm neutral enough that this still works really nicely for me. I do have to be a little careful with this one though, because I find that when I build it up, it can look a little bit heavy. The other ones I feel like are all extremely lightweight. This is the only one I have to be careful of not to go too overboard with it, because I don't want it to look heavy on my skin. Every single other formula here looks pretty weightless on the skin. I would say weightless, 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 almost weightless, and I have to be a little bit careful with this one. That's how that goes. The question is, do I want to keep all of them? The answer when it comes to makeup is always yes, I want to keep all of them. But do I really want what that means? I am trying to limit what I have. I want to keep in mind that I'm trying to clear up my space so that I can really enjoy what I do have to the fullest extent. And so I'm wondering if I really need 5 bronzers. Of course I don't. Of course I don't. But these are really nice, and bronzer is actually one of the things that I tend to pan. You wouldn't know it by looking here, and that's because I've been working on this. I have used this over 500 times and still have not seen pan on it. The Marc Jacobs bronzers were legendary, I think, for that. And so I've been working on this forever. Can't hit pan on this. But in the meantime, I never took this traveling because it's pretty fragile. But I had been taking my Too Faced Chocolate Soleil, and I went through 2 of those and panned them. And I was on a 3rd one, and I ended up comparing it to the Hoola and decided that I liked the Hoola better. And so I ended up giving away the Chocolate Soleil and keeping the Hoola instead. So I feel like I go through bronzer pretty well. I don't know that I would go through this one, but let me see. I want to make a swatch of this one that's more realistic, because I built this up just so we could see the color, but really I would only be wearing it in a very thin veil, and it would look more like this. And the reality is that's not very bronzy on me. And this actually makes me really sad because this, I think, is probably one of the best formulas on the market. But I think I'm going to say goodbye. Ah! That was painful. All right, put that off to the side. Now I've got these 4 goodies remaining. Part of me thinks I should give away, or not give away, but probably throw away the Marc Jacobs just because it is getting up there in years and I've gotten a lot of use out of it. But it's still functioning perfectly well, and it's not a cream product, so I kind of feel like it would be a waste to do that. And it's really nice. This is a gorgeous bronzer. So I feel like, why should I give this beautiful thing away when it's still working so well? So we'll keep this for now. But the question is, these 2 are pretty similar. That's the Bobbi Brown and the Tom Ford. But the main difference is, number 1, the Tom Ford is a glowier bronzer. It has a glowy finish, whereas the Stone Street bronzer from Bobbi Brown is matte. This one is also a little bit cooler than this one, but I am enjoying both of them. And now this is the only glowy bronzer I have. So I think for now I will keep both of these. So these will go in the keep pile. This bronzer is just neutral. Like whenever I'm in doubt of which one I should pick, it's usually going to be this one, just because the color is always going to work. So I think Hoola is going to stay. So yeah, I just got rid of one. This, I think, is what's going to stay, but considering the fact that I didn't really have that many to begin with and wasn't overwhelmed with them, I'm perfectly okay with that. Here are all of my blushes, and I think maybe the easiest way to start this would be to kind of group the blushes that I think of together so that I can do some comparisons. These are all organized in the way that I think of to use them. So let's start with my favorite category first. We'll put this over here. These are my nude blushes, and maybe you can see I get a lot of use out of the blushes in this category. This is Clinique's Cheek Pop in the shade Nude Pop, and this is great. I just wish it were, I don't know, maybe 1 shade deeper, because I really have to build this up to get it to show up on my skin. It does, and it's beautiful, but I don't know that I'll repurchase it, even though it's gorgeous, just because it's not quite dark enough. So if you have a suggestion to put on my wish list, something that's like Nude Pop, that's a little bit desaturated. This is almost a little bit too saturated for me. Like 1 step desaturated and 1 shade deeper than Nude Pop, that would be great, because this one is almost gone. Side note, do you know if you can like repot or repan these? Because It's getting hard to get the product because it's all around the sides, and I'm wondering if I can scrape it out and press it again. But if I repress it, I'm not sure if it'll have the same consistency or the same effect, because I think this is a baked formula. So I don't know. If you happen to have any info, please let me know. All right, so here we have Clinique's Nude Pop, and I tried my best to get a swatch of it. And there we go. As you can see, it's really light on me. I wish it was like a little bit less colorful, but it's still beautiful, and I still really enjoy wearing this. Next, I think we'll actually go with this one. This is the Patrick Ta Blush Duo in She's So LA, and this is a summery blush for me. It's very bronzy. It's a cream and powder, but we're just going to look at the powder today. I know I like the cream, so it doesn't, I'm not going to necessarily look at that today. All right, this is really fun for me to wear in the summer. And I'm just wondering, I want to compare it to the Guerlain bronzer that I decided to declutter. I just want to see what the difference is, because they are very similar to me. Let's swatch that here. Yeah, see, this one is more orangey, and this one is a little bit more me. So I think I made a good decision to declutter the bronzer. This just confirms that. Okay, so we've got Clinique, then we've got Patrick Ta. This is the Lancome Blush Subtil in Cedar Rose, and this was actually decluttered to me from my mom. Her hair color changed and her blush didn't work anymore. Has that ever happened to you? So she gave it to me, and I'm really glad she did, because it does work for me. It is a very kind of nude pink. And so even though it's a different undertone than these, I do feel like it's nude enough that it works for me. But it is pink, which is not something I thought I would enjoy so much. But it turns out this is actually my kind of pink, because it's a nude pink. So I've really been enjoying this as well. So those are my 3 nude blushes, and I feel like they're all different enough that it's worth keeping them, especially since this one's almost gone. I might as well just finish it. Then let's do these next. These are what I consider nude blushes with, I don't know, kind of a purpley, or not purpley, it's hard for me to describe. It's not a muddy undertone, but there's something mucky about these, and that's why I like them. They're almost like a contour. This is actually an eyeshadow from Benefit. I got it for free once. I think basically they weren't making this anymore, and they were just trying to get rid of it. And so I bought an eyebrow pencil, and the sales lady was like, "Here, have a free eyeshadow." And I use this as a blush. I never used it as an eyeshadow. So there's those 2 colors, and then there's this one. This is Cover FX Monochromatic Blush Duo in the shade Warm Honey. And this is kind of like the liveliest version of these. And so I feel like these here that we just looked at are like my everyday skin tone nudes, and these add a little bit of intensity. I actually always use this MAC blush when I'm using my Estee Lauder cream blush, which is right here, because I always set my creams with powders, and so I use this as my cream blush, and then I usually set it with this, and that ends up being a really nice combination. And I am keeping this. I already decided that in my declutter, and so I'm just wondering if I should keep this because I'm keeping that. I don't know. We'll see. It's something to consider. But this is like the liveliest version of these. So I feel like this one does have the potential to look a little bit dirty on me if I'm not careful. So I don't know. Let's take a look. Like, I don't know if it's just a little bit too cool tone for me. I really like it for some reason. This is actually the first blush that I ever bought. It was like 15 years ago. It's still going strong because I can only use very little of it. Otherwise it does look a little dirty on me. But I mean, I don't even know if I should keep it because it's that old. But I don't know. It's also a little bit sentimental because it is the first one I ever bought. This one from Benefit is kind of the same, but like a little bit warmer. And so I'm wondering if that's like a little bit more me. The formula is also very light and airy, and it's a beautiful formula. It's a little bit peachier. I feel like this one tends to look a little bit dirty on me. This one never does. Then we've got the Cover FX blush. We'll do the matte side and then the shiny side. And I feel like this is a really pretty, it turns kind of peachy on me, but I like it. I like peachy as long as it doesn't go orange. And this one doesn't go orange on me. There's still like a hint of brown to it, or a hint of browny pink. So it ends up working out really well for me. Build that up just a little bit more so we can see the undertones. So these are the blushes that I think of when I want to go for a nude that's a little bit deeper, a little bit murkier. And I think it might be time to say goodbye to the MAC blush. Number one, it's old. Number two, it does look like dirt on my face if I'm not careful. And with these two, I don't need to be careful because they don't look like dirt. So the MAC blush is going the way of my terracotta bronzer and will be decluttered. And these two will stay for now, which I think makes sense. I think these are very wearable blush colors for me. Before I wash the swatches off, here are all of my nude blushes. So we have like my everyday easy to wear nudes and my muckier nudes, which now that I'm getting rid of this one, they're really not so mucky anymore. They're just nude, but I'm okay with that. Now we are coming to the blushes that I think of as color on me. And you might laugh, but this is what I consider color on my skin tone for my preferences. Because I have light skin, light eyes, light hair, I can't really wear a whole lot of contrast before it starts looking really crazy on me. So I tend to gravitate towards very subtle colors, less saturated colors, and these are pretty bright for me, but every single time I wear them, I feel like they freshen up my face. So I don't know that I'm going to necessarily give any of these away today. I'll have to see. Let's do this one first. This is the Cover FX blush in Soft Peach. And every time I have ever worn this, I've been really happy with it. So this one I think is definitely worth keeping. That's Soft Peach. The next one is Pink Dahlia, I believe. Yes, Pink Dahlia. I don't necessarily use the shiny side a whole lot, maybe because my skin is combination on the oilier side, and so I don't necessarily feel like I need a whole lot of shine on my cheeks. But the shine is nice because I can just place it where I want it. And so that is Pink Dahlia. Also a brighter pink on me, but I really actually like it. And the last one is Milani's Luminoso, an absolute classic. I'm not sure that anybody on YouTube is allowed to not have Luminoso in their collection. I don't know. But it is a really gorgeous color. It actually beat out one of the old Becca blushes, and those Becca blushes were amazing. So the fact that this beat that out in my panning for gold head-to-head comparison was pretty crazy. But I really like this too. A couple of times I've thought about maybe decluttering it because it is a little bit of an intense shade of peach, but I actually use this as a topper. And because I use it as a blush topper, like normally what I'll do is I'll use either this or this blush. And instead of going into the shiny side, I'll go into Luminoso. Which is a little bit extra, but I just really like the way this looks on the cheeks, and it's fun to wear. So I'm not sure that I'm going to get rid of any of these either. Now we're getting into the blushes that I don't necessarily reach for as often. I think of this category as pink berry because they're berry tones that look a little bit pink on me. This one doesn't look like it'd be pink at all in the pan. This is Hourglass's Mood Exposure, another classic blush. This one is beautiful. I mean, all Hourglass powders are beautiful, but this one is very purpley on me, and I'm wondering if it's maybe the wrong tone for me. But I think, once again, because my mother has those different undertones, this would actually suit her really nicely. And I don't know, Hourglass powders are so nice on skin. So nice on skin. Where else are you going to put it? Your hair? I don't know. But Hourglass powders are so nice. I think she might like it. So I'll have to see if she wants this. But this is one that she actually decluttered to me. This is Lancome Blush Subtil Plum Charm. And this is really pretty, but it's pretty pink for me. As you can see, it's pretty intense. For my tastes, I realize some people wouldn't think of this as intense at all, but I do really like this. However, I'm not sure that I need both of these. Here's the thing. Every time I wear that Estee Lauder blush, the cream blush I talked about earlier, and I used to wear it with the MAC, I would wear the Estee Lauder blush, then I would set it with the MAC, and then I would use the Hourglass as a highlight. And I always thought it looked so gorgeous. I just wonder if keeping it just for that purpose is a little bit silly. I think it might be a little bit silly. I think I'm going to see if my mother wants this. And Mom, it doesn't look purple on your cheeks. Let me do like a normal looking swatch so she can maybe see. Like, that's more of what it would look like. It's just like a nice wash of color. It's not that intense. So I don't know. I think maybe I will also declutter this one. And instead, should I keep this? I think I will. I think this has just the right amount of warmth for me that if I want a little bit more intensity, then I can go for this. So I think we'll put it over here for now in the keeper pile. And I do think it kind of fits in with the more intense, for me, blushes. And these are my corals and oranges. I have thoughts to every single one of these blushes, actually. I think that's a good sign. The fact that I know on my blushes how I've been using them, why I prefer them, or why they give me trouble sometimes. I think that's always a good sign to have in your collection. I think it's a sign that I had too much when I didn't know all my thoughts about what I had. But I've gotten to a point now where I know exactly what I think and exactly when to use what. And that's cool. And so that's why I feel like even though this is a lot of blush, it's not an overwhelming amount for me. So the fact that I haven't decluttered a whole lot doesn't really bother me, but we'll see what happens now. Okay, I think of these as my summer blushes. This is my sunburn blush. And it's red, but it's an orangey red. And so I feel like this works for me. This is a very orangey coral, and this is like a very kind of pinky coral. And so I guess I'll just swatch them for you so you can see. But I think all of these are really pretty. I'm just wondering if I need all of them. This is one that I reach for anytime I feel like I need to liven up my face because I'm just looking a little bit dead. This is the one I choose. And I feel like because that's a thought that I have, oh, I need that specific blush, it's probably worth keeping. Then we have this one from ZC Cosmetics. Oh, by the way, this Clinique blush is in the shade Ginger Pop. This is the ZC, what is it called? The Palace Identity blush. And I'm not sure if there's a shade on it because everything is in Chinese and I cannot read Chinese. But this is like a more orangey version of coral. And sometimes I've reached for this to liven up my face, but the color doesn't necessarily brighten me like I hope it will. But this blush has staying power. This is the blush that I choose for the stage a lot of times because I know it will stay. It's not going to fade even under the most difficult conditions. So I have really enjoyed this blush for that reason. And then we have, this is NARS Exhibit A, and this is going to look really intense in the swatch, but of course it can be blended out. So maybe we'll do a blended out swatch next to it just so we can see. But this is NARS Exhibit A, which on my skin tone looks absolutely insane. And you'd think I'd look like a clown, but in reality, when I use a fan brush and just gently put this on my cheeks, it kind of gives me this like sunburned look in the summer. And this is so nice. I don't think it's actually too much at all. The question is, do either of these two look like it? This one's too pinky. This one maybe blends out to that. So let's do like a kind of a little, wipe some of it off there. Let's compare the swatches and see. I don't know if you can see the difference between Exhibit A and the ZC Palace Identity Blush. I feel like they're actually very similar, which I would never have guessed looking at these two swatches, but looking at them blended out on the face, they're kind of the same, which makes me wonder if I really need both of them. See, when I look at these swatches, if I absolutely had to declutter one, if I absolutely had to, it would be this one, just because it looks like it's so far outside of my wheelhouse, but I know exactly how I use it. This one I don't tend to use as a sunburn blush, but maybe I should think about it. I just wonder if this is maybe a little too orange, because when I look at this, it kind of makes me think that maybe this is like less sunburn and more radiation burn. I don't know. But isn't a sunburn a radiation burn? I don't know. I've been swatching too much. I can't think. I got a drink of water, came back after thinking about it, and I think it's worth keeping all three, and here is why. Yes, these two can be used for the same thing, but this one, for some reason, is so much fun to use in the summer. I think I always feel, I don't know, naughty because I'm using such a dark, bright blush. It's like, ooh, careful, that's dangerous. I don't know. I'm very, very boring. So reaching for a blush like this feels just very on the edge. And I like that. I like that I reach for this in the summer. And even though this one does the same thing, I reach for this one all year round. And so I just feel like it's nice to have a summer blush. It's very extra, I know, but if it's bringing me that much joy, and if I know when I want to use it and how I want to use it, then I feel like owning it is fine. And they are different. I mean, this one is more orangey. This one is a little bit more pinky. I don't know. And this one is just, in comparison, a plain up pink. It doesn't even look coral compared to these. But because I know that this one enlivens my complexion so well, I think this one is definitely worth keeping, especially because the formula of these Clinique Cheek Pop blushes is just superb. And just because it's in the box, even though we're not talking about face palettes today, we'll talk about this one. This is old school. This is actually Kat Von D, not KVD, Kat Von D. But these powders are still going strong. And I know that I have my Kevyn Aucoin contour powder, but that one is going to leave me at some point. I'm going to use it up and then I'll be glad to have this. And I haven't had problems with powders going off for the most part. So I don't know. I have a feeling these will still be going strong. And I do use this every once in a while. Sometimes if I am going on the road, this is a really nice palette to take because I can use these for eyeshadows. These are mainly my colors, but then I'll maybe use these to brighten up or darken my face. Like this is a great contour. This is a great bronzer. I just feel like I have some nice options in this palette. I'm not ready to part with it yet. So even though we're not talking about face palettes today, this one's a keeper. So the final tally for the blushes is I am decluttering 3 and keeping 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And 12 blushes is a lot for one person's face, but I really do like having options and I don't feel overwhelmed by these. Every single time I do my makeup, I think about what I want to reach for and I can remember all of these. If I'm looking for this kind of mood, I know to choose this. If I'm looking for that kind of mood, I know to choose that. It's pretty easy for me to keep these straight in my head. So I think this is good. But I think ideally, maybe I would limit myself to 10 blushes. Ultimately, I'm not going to be limiting myself in numbers. I'm going to be using the container concept. So we'll see how this goes. I am going to have to figure out how I want to store these. And then that container is going to limit the size of my blush collection. So who knows? Maybe I'll have to go in and pare down even more. But for today, I'm really happy with this because I feel like I'm getting rid of, number one, an extremely old blush, but also one that literally looks like dirt on my face. So we can get rid of that. This one is absolutely gorgeous. So I feel like giving this away will feel really good because someone is going to get a lot of joy out of this really high quality, gorgeous thing. And then this one just doesn't have a finish that I like. As much as I adore the color, it's the perfect color, I just don't like the chunky glitter. And so I'm happy to part with these, and I'm satisfied with what I have here. This is my final tally for highlighters. Decluttering 1, keeping 5. Although, now that I'm looking at this, I think I can part with this one because I have a couple of face palettes and I travel a lot in the summer, and those face palettes have highlighters in them too, some of which are pretty dark. So you know what? This one's going to go as well. So I'll be decluttering 2 and keeping 4. Which I think is quite quite manageable, and I'm happy with this. And here is the sum total of my bronzers. I am decluttering 1 and keeping 1, 2, 3, 4, which I also feel is manageable. Here is everything I will be decluttering. All in all, beautiful things. I think this one is probably too old to give away. I'm not sure anybody wants a 15-year-old blush, but everything else in here is in excellent condition. It's still ripe for use, and so I want to give it away so that people can actually get some use out of it and enjoy it, and I can spend more time enjoying my other beautiful things. I'm honestly a little bit surprised at some of the things I chose to get rid of, especially that Dior highlighter. So I'm very glad that I have my time will tell box. Everything I've decluttered today, everything I've decluttered in this whole series is going into that time will tell box to save me from myself, just in case I make some sort of mistake. But I'm actually feeling pretty good about the choices I made today. So since these declutters are only semi-final, I figure I will share my full collection and inventory and organizational videos after I've lived with my new slimmed down, streamlined, curated collection for a few weeks. So make sure you subscribe if that sort of thing sounds interesting to you. Because one of the purposes of this whole declutter is to help me become more finely attuned to what my makeup preferences actually are. And I think I have a pretty good idea of what they are aesthetically speaking, but I'm also trying to think of it in the context of my life preferences during this season, because right now I just need to keep everything as simple as possible. And so I don't mind having a lot of makeup. In fact, I enjoy the variety that it offers me, but I do want to make sure that each individual piece is adding value because life is too short and rent is too expensive for my stuff to just be sitting around taking up space. If you can appreciate that kind of attitude, then please like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. But even if you don't, I hope you have a great week, and we can all remember that even stumbling can be a form of moving forward. So let's stumble in style.